Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Chartered Banker information session. I'm really happy and proud to be joined by Ange Bernal. She's a Chartered Banker herself and Director of Third-Party Relationships at Judo. We're really lucky because Ange is actually at a PD day working for Judo with a group of brokers. So if there is a bit of background noise, please apologise. I apologise, but I guess it's good to see that we are actually working with people who've got genuine jobs and are active in the industry. So Ange, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thanks, JJ.
My name's John Jeffery, JJ. I'm the head of employer services here at FINSIA. My job is really just to build engagement and build a really genuine dialogue with organisations to ensure that we best represent our members and the organisations our members work for. For some of you, this might be the first time that you've interacted with FINSIA and the Chartered Banker qualification. So just a bit of background. FINSIA has been raising professionalism in banking since 1886. When you Google it, 1886 is famous because Coca-Cola was invented and the Statue of Liberty was gifted to the people of New York by the French. When FINSIA was first finding its feet as part of, as it was then the AIBF, the Australian Institute of Banking and Finance, there was a lot of corruption going on in banking. It coincided with the gold rush in Victoria, and people, miners, were going out there into the field, digging up some gold, bringing it back to the bank, going out the next day, coming back and realizing the bank was no longer there. What happened was a group of bankers got together and said, well, if we allow this to continue to happen, people won't trust banking and it's bad for everyone. Even the good banks will go under. So they got together and they wanted to share best practice and build a professional network and camaraderie between the good banks so they could isolate the worst banks. So a bit more about FINSIA then. I mentioned the AIBF forming in 1886. In 1966, the Securities Institute of Australia formed. The Securities Institute, obviously, as markets became more complex and there was more complex derivatives and securities, it was assessed by a group of individuals again that there needed to be a good level or a strong level of professionalism within the industry. These two bodies merged in 2005 to form FINSIA. FINSIA is, I'm sure, what most of you are familiar with now. A couple of years ago, FINSIA started offering the professional qualifications in banking through the Chartered Banker. And the Chartered Banker Institute, they've been going for a couple of years longer than the AIBF, but built around very similar concepts and with similar missions. We've engaged with a lot of employers over the last few years as we've rolled out these professional qualifications. This is a snapshot of a few. I wanted to include some from different areas as well, because you can see Deloitte and Microsoft are in there. A lot of the organizations that are servicing the banks use our qualifications so they can understand their customers, the bankers, better. But you can also see the Australian Banking Association. Two in particular, NAB and Judo Bank, obviously, if you follow the financial press and the trade press, you'll know, have adopted the professional qualifications offered by FINSIA wholly, en masse. Indeed, NAB are currently rolling out the professional banking fundamentals to 30-odd thousand staff, and Judo, being the leaders in the space, the first organization to actually adopt them locally, has been rolling out a mixture of professional banking fundamentals and the Chartered Banker. So why are people taking these qualifications on? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. In essence, it's starting to become expected. When we talk about professional qualifications, we talk about the professions, and you'll be familiar with a chartered accountant, a lawyer, a doctor. All of these are well-known and well-established professions. In essence, the reason why professional bodies and professions started forming was because there needed to be trust in the skills and the competency of the individuals who were providing the service. But what's more, those people who are providing the services needed to understand that there's an asymmetry of knowledge between the expert and the customer. If you go to a lawyer, of course, you're not expected to know law in the same way that the lawyer does. Similarly, if you go to a banker for a business loan, you're not going to understand the ins and outs. So you're a bit of a disadvantage. Therefore, it's expected for the professional to have what we call a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that they're doing what's right for the customer, not necessarily what's right for them or what's right for their organization. Because in the long run, if customers trust the banks will prosper. If customers don't trust the banks, then we'll look at alternative places for our mortgages, business loans, etc. So increasingly, post-Royal Commission, there's a lot more expectation of bank staff in terms of their knowledge, their capability, but also there's an expectation from customers that staff will be qualified, that they will be at a good standard of education, and they will provide services at a good standard in terms of their conduct. For those people who want to do it themselves for less altruistic reasons, let's say, of course, it enables you to differentiate yourself and enhances your profile in the job market. You can say, unlike particular competitors for a role, I'm a chartered banker. What we do think as well is, whilst a number of individuals will have done internal bank training, you might have done your induction as part of your onboarding, you may even have done some specific credit skills training. A large proportion of those skills are not, a large proportion of those qualifications are not recognized in other organizations. So if you go to Westpac, for example, you might do a induction course. A few years later, you get a job at NAB. You'll have to do the same induction course or a similar induction course before you can talk to clients. What you're doing here is you're getting yourself some passportable and internationally recognized global qualifications, which enable you to move from one organization to another organization and have that external validation and recognition of the skills and competencies, as well as your commitment to a higher standard of conduct that goes with you. And of course, I've talked about skills and capability. Well, learning is going to be beneficial. Unlike training, professional qualifications focus not just on the actual skills or the actual knowledge, but it talks about the behaviors, what's expected of you to be that ethical professional. So not only do you understand the products and services that your organization offers, but you understand the products and services which are best for your customer, even if it means that they're not best for the company that you're working for. A quote here from Ross McEwen: "We want the very best bankers in Australia. That's how we will serve our customers well." And I know the CEO of Judo, Joseph Healy, has a very similar mentality. How can we invest in our people? Whilst it might seem great, it builds a comparative advantage in terms of capability. The reality is that if you have the best bankers out there, well, you're going to have the best customer experience. And if you have the best customer experience, your business will grow. So it's an investment in your people, but it's also an investment in your customers and the industry as a whole. Okay, so we've spoken a little bit about whom FINSIA is, FINSIA's background, and why FINSIA was formed. It's a not-for-profit. The idea behind FINSIA really was to build that level of trust. It really was to ensure that the industry as a whole is recognized as a professional industry. And that's what we are working on at the moment. That's what my mandate is and the mandate of my team. By working with the Chartered Banker Institute, we've also extended our global reach. I mentioned that the qualifications such as the Chartered Banker, the Professional Banking Fundamentals, etc., are all internationally recognized. Here's just a list of some of the these all tie in with the global banking education standards. So this global expectation of how people should behave and what people should know if they're getting involved in financial services. To give you a bit of flavor as to what the qualifications look like and the qualifications that we'll be talking to this afternoon, really, I just wanted to use this quick pyramid to describe where you might fit in. Previously, when we've done the Why Become a Chartered Banker qualification, information sessions, we've had people who don't really have the necessary experience or tenure in the market for them to take on one of the higher level courses. So essentially, if you're new to the industry or you're working in a support function such as marketing, etc., or indeed if you're looking to round out your knowledge to achieve a fundamental standard, the professional banking fundamentals will be for you. We've had some very senior people undertake the professional banking fundamentals and said they've learned a lot. And it's a professional qualification that takes about 4 months to undertake. Above that, we've got the certified professional banker. This really is for people to focus their skill set in an area which is important to them. We've got a consumer credit module, a business banking module, and a risk management module. You undertake 3 modules, or sorry, 2 of those modules, plus the professional banking fundamentals, and you become a certified professional banker. The chartered banker by study, which I'll talk to in more detail, is also for everyone. It's a bit more of a commitment because it involves some higher level study. It's more complicated. So if you're committed to becoming a banker or working in the industry for a long period of time, this will be the course for you. It'll build on your strategic awareness. It'll build upon your ability to create risk frameworks, etc. But it'll also enable you to specialize to a degree into credit, commercial lending in particular, and risk skills. So that's for those of you who want to dedicate towards a higher level qualification. The fourth level is the chartered banker by experience. All of the learning outcomes that come into the chartered banker need to be measured, and the chartered banker by experience takes an experienced banker and asks them questions to see if they understand the components that exist in the chartered banker. So it's an accelerated program which recognizes your experience if you've been in the industry for a while, and also your contribution to banking in general. And you do this through a series of self-reflective essays and a presentation rather than undertaking these study modules. As I mentioned, we're here to talk about the chartered banker, so let's ignore some of that and focus on the chartered banker itself. It's a globally recognized program for individuals who seek to achieve the absolute highest levels of excellence and professionalism in banking. If you're familiar with things like the chartered accountant, just replace the word accountant with banker and you've got the same idea. Accountants are typically trusted advisors for their customers, and bankers need to do the same. It consists of a mandatory module, 2 mandatory modules and elective modules, 3 mandatory modules and elective modules. The mandatory modules I mentioned before are the strategy, the risk management, and there's one around what it is to be a professional. So there's a big focus on ethics. And then those elective modules, we talked about personal and private banking, and then the commercial lending. So you can specialize in the area that you want to go. There's a full suite of learning materials which are given to you, and it can be completed in as little as 18 months if you really get cracking. But it is a postgraduate level qualification. So it's really for those who are determined to go further in the industry and want to commit and differentiate themselves in that direction. As I mentioned, very fortunate to have Ange with us. Ange did the chartered banker by experience. So Ange, I won't say how long you've been in the industry. I'll let you tell your story. But essentially for those who are more experienced, there's an opportunity to demonstrate that they've got the ethical standing, they've got the commercial and the technical knowledge, and through a series of reflective statements and an essay, it's an opportunity to say, hey, I'm at the standard to be a chartered banker, and I'm going to go through the chartered banker by experience. So once again, Ange, thank you very much for taking time out of what is an extremely hectic day. And I know there's lunch going on somewhere in the background. So apologies for keeping you away from those conference lunches, which I always think are great. Perhaps I can bring you in and just ask you a question. The chartered banker by experience, what brought you to that qualification? How come you decided to do it?
Okay, so I guess for me, I've been in the banking industry for over 24 years now. I've worked for a couple of major banks before joining judo. So I joined judo just under 3 years ago. For me, it was an opportunity, great opportunity. When I heard about judo and the co-founders, Joseph Healy and David Hornery, really shared their vision in terms of their passion in terms of, bringing back the old school traditional banking as it used to be, banking as it should be. So they gave me the opportunity. So I'm grateful for judo to be able to give me the opportunity to be able to participate in the charter banking program. So we pride ourselves, judo's always and I feel exactly the same in terms of, being, having the integrity, building trusted relationships with our customers and doing what's right by the customer. So with a chartered banker program, it's important to be able to have the professional qualifications as a way to differentiate ourselves in the industry as well. Just having that additional acknowledgement as well, and help set the benchmark as well, and balance both the technical skills and also with around the ethics and our moral obligations in the industry.
Yeah, it's a real signal, isn't it, to customers, I guess, to the regulators. I know they've been watching this for a long period of time, but also to peers that you're committed, and you want to really contribute to keeping the industry trustworthy. And you mentioned the founders of Judo. Obviously, they're chartered bankers from the UK originally. Yes. So they've got a long belief in this genuine tradition of being a trusted professional and a trusted partner, and for Judo, obviously business partners. So do you mind just explaining a little bit about your experience of the chartered banker by experience? There's a series of written essays, or not essays, but reflective statements. How did you go about actually undertaking those essays?
Yeah, as you said, JJ, it is an intense course to be completed over a 12-week period. So it is it does take some time out of, but for me, it was a great opportunity with the reflective statements to look back. So on, some of the key experiences and situations that have impacted how I operate going forward as well. And that has, helped me to develop how I kind of operate in the industry. So the Chartered Banker program does focus a lot on ethics, and it's really important, especially in the current environment. And we've seen with the GFC and the findings around the Royal Commission, the Banking Royal Commission. So to be able to reflect that, and there was some I guess the 3 reflective statements was around banking and risk management. So what were some of the situations that had an impact on me? And really, so it was good to go back and, reflect on those and look back and say, well, this is what I did back then. Did I make the right ethical decisions? And, so that was good to reflect on that. And also how banking and technology has changed over the years. And just in terms of leadership style as well. So that was really important. And, just reflecting back on that, it really aligns then back to, Judo and our values in terms of, our core values within Judo is trust, teamwork, accountability and performance. Yeah. So that really centers around the ethics piece as well, which the Chartered Banker program focuses on as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting, the trust, the teamwork. These are aspirational things that you expect of a professional, and you do want to ensure that when you're interacting with an organization such as a bank or another professional organization, you've got people who are behaving with integrity, from an ethical standpoint, but also they're going to be competent and work together in a meaningful way. I guess you speak about those different reflective statements that you did. Were there any that you'd say were particularly challenging, or any that were more enjoyable than the others? Anything that's sort of from your experience you go, that really resonates?
Yeah, the banking and risk management, because over my career there were a couple of situations where ethics played a big part in those situations, and it was great to be able to reflect back on those situations, and because those key events in my career really has had an impact on how I've operated, and really shaped how I've been able to deal with customers, especially in our industry where and especially now at Judo, customers are our main focus. We look at the individual needs of the clients, and we need to look at their situation. So So looking back at those, and then because all the reflective statements also then roll into the major assignment that needs to be, that we need to complete as well. But that's, as I said, it's a roll up. And then it actually makes you kind of confront, well, those situations, would you have done anything differently? Would I have done anything differently in those situations? And, you know, going through that, it was great because I, you know, sometimes I guess not having too focused on that, and, you know, you get busy, and I've always thought, did I do what was right for the customer back then? But then it was great being able to write the reflective statements and, you know, going through the situation. I just went, no, actually, you know, what I did was right. But then also it does challenge you in terms of your thinking and, you know, how I did manage those situations back then. And, you know, the pressures within that in terms of, you know, having to meet targets, you know, sales targets as opposed to looking after customers. So, you know, balancing that as well. But also then the technology in the industry, how things have changed, you know, with internet banking and just the platforms. And we look at also, you know, segregation of duties. So just how the banks have kind of evolved in terms of operation, their operating rhythm, platform systems, to obviously then, you know, key focus is always ultimately the customers, the end customer.
Yeah, that's really interesting that you point out those things, the technology. It's not often that we get a chance to, in a pseudo-academic fashion, just stop and think and reflect on where we've been, that enables us to go forward in the right direction. And having that in the core of judo's DNA, if I can use that word, it is fascinating. The idea that I think judo, because you're a new bank, you could build your culture from scratch. And the vision is, what do we want this bank to look like in 100 years? So what does it need to start on? Whereas some of the other banks perhaps have lost their way in terms of focusing on selling products and incentives to staff rather than focusing on the customer. But a lot of that's shifting. You know, we are coming around, and COVID's assisted in some way. We're getting close to time, but I might just ask you a quick question. This, you know, is a bit of a difficult one. The contribution to professionalism in of the industry. We hear a lot of people who have done our professional qualifications say it makes them feel proud that they're doing the right thing, and they're signaling they're doing the right thing, and they've got a certificate that says it. Do you mind just adding a comment there? You know, how do you feel now you've done it, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, look, you know, having the certificate is great. It's great recognition, you know, and as I said, it's a differentiation as well in the industry. But it also then just reinforces, you know, obviously why we're in the industry, what we're here to do, and ultimately, you know, ethics does play a big part. And as I said, that's come to the forefront, especially with the Banking Royal Commission, as I said. So, you know, I guess everyone's a lot more cautious as well these days, which is a great thing. You know, that's been called out. As I said, you know, sales targets and all that kind of get in the way. But then, as I said, going back to doing what's right for the customers, that's the important thing.
And feeling you can do that, you know, must be really empowering as well, which is great. All right, last question then. We're going to have a lot of people who are listening and fascinated by your experience. If they meet the experience levels and, you know, they've been in the industry long enough, who would you recommend does the Chartered Banker by experience?
Well, look, I do, you know, it's bankers that, or, you know, people that have been in the industry for, as you said, have had at least that 10 plus years, because I guess, you know, they need to kind of have that, the overall experiences in various situations as well, to be able to really embrace the course, the program, especially, you know, being able to look back and complete some of the reflective statements, and, you know, so the experience piece is very important. But it was a great opportunity, as I said, for me. And I'm grateful for judo to have been able to provide that, because as I said, it's just that, you know, it's that it's that differentiation as well,
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
industry, which is and internationally recognized. So
yeah. That's which is great, isn't it? I guess we do hear that as well. I love the idea of embracing the program, but people who have been bankers for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years plus, there's no real, or for a lot of them, there's no real banking recognition of that experience. There's nothing there that says, hey, you've been a banker for this period of time. There's no bank masters or anything similar. So this is a great way to go, well, actually, you know, my experience and my contribution can be recognized, and it can be recognized in a way such as a certificate. That's great.
So I did want to add a point, because for me, you know, I've been in the industry for 24 years, as I said, and I hadn't studied for maybe 20 plus years since I left uni. So, but look, don't, for those that have been in the industry for long, don't be disheartened by that, because, you know, it's not studying as such. It is, you know, looking back at your experience. And as I said, you know, it's a great opportunity. So it's a great program, but yeah, just don't think you've been in the industry for long, you know, I've got to go back and look at doing some studies. But it really does, you know, it's a good opportunity. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah. Don't be scared.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, embrace it. I love that idea. Well, unfortunately, we are coming to time. So I think if I can just finish off with a quick slide. The question then becomes, what qualification is right for you if you're watching this? The chartered banker. Well, there's the chartered banker by experience if you do have that 10 years worth of experience and you've got some leadership experience. There is a application process. Not everyone who applies gets through, but that's not to say you shouldn't have a go at applying. If you want to study, so perhaps you don't have that experience, but you still want to get that chartered banker recognition and that qualification, you can go through that study pathway of the 5 modules that I discussed. And that's for those who want to be recognized, but also aspiring for those leadership roles, the strategy roles, the higher end thinking in banking. Perhaps the professional banking fundamentals or the certified professional banker is right for you as well. It's a shorter route to a professional qualification, and they're both really pitched at anyone who's interested in coming along. For more information, or if you want just a quick chat, I'm happy to share my email details. It's on the screen there now. j.jeffery, Jeffery @finsia.com. Just send me an email and myself or one of my colleagues will drop you a line and talk you through perhaps which is the best qualification for you. All I've got to say then is, Ange, thank you ever so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Some great insights. Things that I'll be using more. I love the idea of embracing the program and living it and breathing it. And your experiences around how it helped you stop and think to, I guess, square yourself around the experiences you've had, but position those forward looking. So embracing those ideas of technology, etc. Really, really great. Good luck with the rest of the PD day. I hope it goes wonderfully well. And hopefully there's still a couple of minutes left to grab some lunch before you go. Thank you very much for your time, and everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Drop me a line and we can continue the conversation. Have a wonderful afternoon.